Story from r/entitled people. I pay rent so I own the house. Some backstory. My parents used to own a house on a big piece of land. When my older siblings went away for college, the house felt too big for our needs, so my parents decided to sell the house, but not all the land. They built a smaller house on the part of the land they didn't sell. A few years later, we moved to a city 2 hours away and kept the house as a place to go during the summer. My parents decided to rent the house since it was well located and had a really nice view. Renting it meant they could use the money toward the mortgage and taxes. Enter Karen. Karen and her boyfriend rented the place so she could be closer to her work. From the start, my dad made it clear, the place was for rent, and my parents planned on living in the house after retiring. At that time, they both planned to work for at least another 20+ years. They promised to notify Karen in advance when they wanted to take back the house, giving her plenty of time to find a new place. In return, they asked that she notify them in advance if she wished to move out, so they could find a new renter. The lease also stated that my parents would store some of their belongings in a locked storage space in the basement and in a shed on the property. They also promised to always call Karen before stopping by to retrieve anything. The basement was connected to the garage, so they wouldn't even disturb her. For a few years, Karen was an okay renter. She paid rent via check each month. She smoked inside and didn't take care of the land, but my dad didn't make a fuss about it. The real trouble started after around 12 years. Every few months, Karen's checks began bouncing. My dad would call her about it, and Karen would profusely apologize and rectify the situation. Then it became every other month. Eventually, it was every month. Finally, my dad had enough and called her to talk about the lease and the rent. During the call, Karen argued that since she had been paying rent for the past 12 years, the house was now hers. My dad was shocked, as this came out of nowhere. He tried to explain to her that she was renting the place as they had agreed since the beginning. Karen went on a tirade about how she had paid so much over the years, was the one living there, and was taking care of the place, which she wasn't doing at all. Therefore, she claimed, the house should be hers. She even threatened to take my dad to court. Now, where I live, there are many laws protecting renters, and it can be a nightmare to deal with when you have a bad tenant. My dad hired a lawyer to ensure everything was in order. After a meeting with Karen, where the lawyer was present, she realized she didn't have much of a case since all paperwork concerning the house was in my dad's name, and the original lease clearly stated it was a rental. My dad offered her the option to stop renting if she wished, given the circumstances, but Karen wanted to stay in the house. He made her sign a new lease stating, again, that it was a rental and that, should she fail to pay or cause trouble again, my dad would give her the shortest notice of eviction allowed by law. Karen is still renting the house after almost 20 years. My parents are not close to retiring yet. I do hope it won't turn into a mess when they decide to take back the house. Edit. The question, why did your dad let her sign a new lease, comes up a lot in the comments. Here's what I've answered. 1. I don't have the slightest clue why he would do that. I was much younger when this happened and wasn't kept in the loop. It's also not the reaction I would expect from my dad, as he's respectful and expects the same in return. 2. I do know the legal actions he took when she threatened court protected him from future problems. While I appreciate all the concern and advice, I believe my dad had a good reason to keep her as a tenant, from hell, after everything that went down. Some people asked for updates in the comments, and there have been new developments in the past few months. This is an update from the post 5 years ago. The timeline. Since the beginning, there was a mutual agreement between Karen and my parents that they would both give a 6-month notice if she moved out or if my parents wanted to take back the house. Last week of June 2024, my dad received a call from a representative of Karen. Due to financial circumstances, she was giving a month's notice before moving out. My parents were surprised by the short notice but didn't mind much since they were looking forward to taking back the place. Last week of July 2024, Karen was set to move out but asked for a week's extension because she couldn't find help to move. My parents agreed. She was now set to move out by August 3rd. August 4th, 2024. With the car loaded with essentials, dinnerware, small furniture, etc., we left for the house to inspect its condition, clean a little, and take measurements for remodeling. When we arrived, we noticed a sign in the driveway advertising a garage sale. We assumed Karen forgot to take it down. We were wrong. As we approached the house, we saw boxes and furniture through the windows. Cue the shocked faces. Karen answered the door. It turned out she hadn't moved yet and meant to call my dad but never did. She clearly hadn't expected us to drop by so soon. My parents were furious but gave her another week and made it clear she'd need to pay for the time she overstayed. August 18, 2024, my parents received confirmation from a neighbor that Karen had finally moved out, but we couldn't make the trip until a week later. We found the house in much better shape than expected. Of course, it showed normal wear and tear from years of use. It needed a thorough cleaning, fresh paint in most rooms, and a lot of work on the yard. My parents also planned to remodel, adding a first-floor room to avoid climbing stairs all the time. Turning a new leaf. This ends the chapter. My parents got the summer house back years earlier than expected, and while Karen was difficult until the end, she left without causing the massive trouble we feared. My parents are excited to reclaim the place and begin their projects. They've been visiting almost weekly to clean and sort through stored belongings. My dad repainted some rooms and is searching for new furniture. My brother has started clearing trees to restore the fantastic kitchen view we used to have. My dad even bought an old lawn tractor for the yard work and is as excited as a little kid with a new toy. We're hoping to get the house cleaned and ready to spend Christmas camping there, even if we won't have much furniture yet. Our next story, entitled Passenger Raving. I used to think some entitled passenger stories might be a bit dramatized, but I witnessed my first full-on entitled passenger recently. I was on a domestic short-haul flight. It's only about 90 minutes. There are 2 rows in the middle with extra legroom because they're the emergency exit rows. These seats come with a surcharge. The flight itself was about £180, and the surcharge for the legroom seats was an extra £49.99. I booked a standard row just behind the emergency exit seats, which were occupied by 3 middle-aged women about my age. This was 7:30 a.m., and these women were whooping and screeching like drunks on a hen night. Then a couple of men turned up, looked a bit puzzled, and very politely pointed out that the ladies were in their seats. "Oh no," the women screeched. "It's the first day of our holiday, and we just wanted to enjoy ourselves." The men responded calmly, "Yes, but you're in our seats, so please can you move?" It turned out that only the woman in the middle seat had actually booked a legroom seat, and her friends had taken the other 2 instead of sitting in their cheaper, standard seats. Middle seat screecher tried every excuse. "I'd be lonely without my friends here. We want to sit together. And it's only a short flight. You'll be fine in our seats instead." Neither man backed down, and eventually, the steward intervened and made the 2 friends move to their correct seats. Next came the safety announcement, and the middle seat screecher was told that all her bags had to go into the overhead locker as a condition of sitting in the emergency exit row. She immediately started complaining, "That's an expensive bag. Someone will try and steal it. I need it here. I have things I might need during the flight." The senior attendant stepped in and told her very firmly that she either stowed her bag or moved to a standard seat. Since the flight was full, that would mean disembarkation. Reluctantly, she stowed the bag. When the refreshments came around, she asked for a gin and tonic, at 8 a.m., no less, because it's my holiday, I deserve a drink. The attendant informed her that, as part of the emergency exit row rules, she couldn't drink alcohol in case it impaired her ability to operate the emergency door. She exploded, "That's effing stupid. We're not going to crash. It's just 1 drink. This guy can open the door if he needs to." The senior attendant returned and issued her a stern warning. If she continued to disrupt the flight, she would be placed on the airline's banned passenger list and barred from booking with them again. That shut her up for a while. She spent the rest of the journey sulking, grumbling about how her holiday was ruined, and trekking up and down the aisle to screech with her friends further back. Honestly, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. How do people like this not feel embarrassed about making a total fool of themselves in public? And how do they think they're entitled to take someone else's seat, knowing it cost a lot more than they paid? Our next story is entitled "Uncle Wants Me to Fund and Co-Sign on a Loan for a Home." In a lifetime of entitled behavior from my aunts and uncles, this one may take the cake. One of my uncles, Travis, is looking to buy a home. He mentioned this to me a couple of weeks ago and was asking about the process. I suggested that he and his family get their funds together sooner rather than later. By this, I meant that he should start by getting the money owed to him by my other 2 uncles, Randy and George. I figured he might have more questions as he got further into the process, so I didn't think much more about it. For context, Randy and George owe Travis money because Travis gave them a down payment for a house they were all supposed to own together. Travis and Randy's families were supposed to live there, which they did for a while. However, Travis' family eventually moved out due to size limitations, even though they were apparently paying rent while living there. Why it made sense to pay rent after already contributing a down payment and supposedly co-owning the house, I have no idea. At the time, I told Travis to be careful and make sure he was legally protected in this arrangement. He didn't listen. Once he moved out, Randy and George rented out the now vacant second unit. Randy basically lives there for free, while George gained ownership of the house without contributing any money. Randy and George were supposed to pay Travis back for his down payment, but it has been 4 to 5 years, and they haven't done so. The other night, Travis called me. After some small talk, he brought up buying a home again. I asked if he had a specific question about the process. He did. He wanted to know if I would sign on as support for the loan and help with the down payment. Yes, He was asking me to co-sign the loan and provide part of the down payment for a home I have no interest in owning or managing. Travis said he spoke to Randy and George about getting his money back. They told him they needed some time but suggested he talk to me about helping with the loan in the meantime. I thought I must have misheard him, so I asked him to clarify. Instead of getting money from the brothers who actually owe him, he was taking their advice and asking me to co-sign a loan and give him money for a house. I told him no, this was not something I was willing to do, and quickly ended the call. I couldn't believe the gall to even ask. This just reinforces why I keep my distance from certain family members. EOP posted an update 2 days later. Yesterday, I visited my mom so she could go trick-or-treating with us. While there, I got more information that made me laugh out loud at how ridiculous and entitled this whole situation is. Not only did they ask me to co-sign the loan, but they also asked my dad to help fund the down payment. By help, I'm fairly certain they meant paying the entire down payment. My dad, of course, said no. Here's the kicker. Travis can get a loan, but it's not enough for the type of house they want. What they're after is a 2-family home close to the city we live near. They don't want to move farther out, even though that's all they can afford with their current loan approval. They specifically want a multi-family home so they can rent out 1 unit. Their grand plan? My dad pays the down payment. I co-sign the loan to increase their borrowing capacity, they buy the more expensive home they want, and then rent out 1 unit to help cover the mortgage. Oh, and the rental income wouldn't even go directly to my dad to repay him. Instead, they'd pay him back as they can. So, to summarize, instead of going to the people who actually owe them money, they decided to ask my dad and me to essentially buy them a home. My relatives have a long history of entitlement, but this one takes the cake. I'm still flabbergasted that they even thought it was okay to ask. Our next story beeped my car horn while they were on their phone. Recently, I parked in an underground car park at a small shopping center. I parked nose in, next to a large pole on my left. There was an empty car space beside me when I went into the center. When I returned to my car with a full shopping trolley, a man had parked next to me, reversed in. He was on his phone, standing between my car and his, with his driver's door open, the door almost touching my driver's door. I gave him a nod to say hello, unloaded groceries into my boot, and returned my trolley. When I came back to my car, I said, "Excuse me, please," so I could enter my car, thinking he'd realize I wanted to leave. He gave me the biggest sideways stink eye, still talking on his phone, but did move slightly and closed his door so I could get into my car. As soon as I was in, he opened his door again. Now, if I had reversed, my wing mirror would have clipped his door, and I couldn't swing my car the other way because of the pole. I lowered my window and asked nicely, "Excuse me, can you close your door so I can leave?" He glared at me, held up a finger in a wait gesture, and turned away. Okay, I closed my window, locked the doors, looked at him directly, and laid my hand on the horn. He spun around and, oh, if looks could kill, he was still on the phone. My hand was still on the horn. He glared at me even harder. My hand was still on the horn. I raised my eyebrows and kept looking directly at him. He got into his car and slammed his door. I took my hand off the horn. "Thank you," I mouthed at him with a sweet smile and reversed my car. Was I petty? Yes. Did it feel good? Also yes. Edit. Because there are some comments. Yes, I am in Australia. And no, there was /is zero fear of guns. Our next story, Lady Spam. I used to have this customer whose name rhymed with spam. She insisted that only a manager could make her food since she is royalty. This woman always came in wearing jorts, and one of those wolf shorts you frequently see at Walmart. Nothing wrong with that, but it sure doesn't scream royalty. Manager was off one day when she came in and she wanted me to call him at home to come make her food. I told her I wouldn't be doing that. Then she turned red and said, "I am royalty and underscore." I simply told her I've never heard of it and she should come back tomorrow when he is here since I'm not qualified to make her food. She was stunned. Why is it so fun to trigger people like this? Our next story, couple thinks that they're the only people in this world. This happened today at my job. So I work at a restaurant in the airport. I just clocked back in for my break and was walking behind this middle-aged couple. And it's crowded and hectic as F, so I can't go around them. It's already pissing me off when they're walking 5 miles per hour, but at least I'm getting paid to walk behind them. And then they stopped, which is causing a congestion behind them. The woman was like, "Babe, you want Chick-fil-A or Starbucks?" And her man was like, "I don't know, what do you want?" And of course, his old lady doesn't know what she wants. So now I'm like, are you guys effing serious right now? So, being a naturally loud Latina, I said, "Excuse me" 3 times, and either they were too distracted by what the F they wanted to eat, or they were straight up ignoring me. Either way, I'm beyond pissed, and I parted those two apart like Moses with the Red Sea and was like, "Get the F out of my way." And they got the audacity to catch an attitude with me and call me rude? You know what's rude? Blocking everyone's path just because you don't know what you want to eat. You do know there's other people around you, right? We got places to be and people to see because, we're at an airport. If you're gonna leave your brain at home when you travel, then just don't travel at all. Edit. I got asked how two people can block a big asshole in the airport. There's already a line for Chick-fil-A occupying part of the side where they're leaving the concourse, so naturally, the traffic leaving said concourse is forced to take up part of the space for traffic going towards the terminal. I'm in the middle of the traffic going towards the terminal, and just like any traffic jam while on the road or walking through a crowded airport, we're all up on each other trying to go from point A to point B. The couple blocked the only available path going towards the terminal, and we would love to go around them, but the trash can was to the right of the couple, blocking the only other way to go around them without bumping into someone. Then it's risky going around the couple from the left because of the traffic going in the opposite direction. Not gonna lie, I didn't want to go that direction in fear of probably getting trampled on. I know it's unlikely, but that's my anxiety talking for me. Anyway, no, I didn't shove the couple. I just simply pushed myself between them, which is something I'm not proud of but at the time thought was the only solution. Also, I now know 5 miles per hour is nearly a jog, but not really, thanks for the correction. I was trying to describe how slow they were walking, and it's way slower than the traffic itself. And I know that middle-aged is like the 50s, but that's an age where someone should know better than to cause a congestion, especially in a crowded airport. Hope this clears up everything. That's it for now, see you in the next post.